In an underground gang garage, the younger brothers are hurriedly packing all their belongings in preparation for moving. The boss sitting in the office is looking sad because his nephew stole someone's car and killed that person's dog. What's even worse is this: the car is in his garage now. The second in command doesn't understand why the boss is so afraid of that man. The boss finally said the man's name. It's John Wick, but the second in command still doesn't give up. They have many people, but they need enough. Are they still afraid of him alone? The boss told him that the legends and stories about John Wick in the world were all downplayed without exception. He might be the most powerful killer in the world. Suddenly the phone rang. The boss answered the phone and heard the voice on the receiver. His expression changed. It changed, and it turned out that it was John Wick who had arrived. Sure enough, a man in a black suit broke into the garage secretly. He opened the cover of a car and finally found his stolen car, a 1969 Ford Mustang. Boss 29 John sat in the car, and it seemed like seeing him caressing the car like a lover reunited after a long separation. He started the engine. The power of the Mustang 429 was still strong, but the sound of the powerful motor alarmed the loud voices in the garage. Everyone got into taxis and wanted to chase him. The Mustang leaped out of the warehouse. A number of yellow taxis were chasing behind John. He didn't pay attention and was violently hit by several cars. A car at the end of the road was suddenly hit and became angry. John originally wanted to take his car and leave peacefully. Now that he thought so, John was angry. If he was left behind, he simply wouldn't leave. He drove back to the garage and started killing John. He knocked out a small boy's throat with a big white tail, but the next moment he was hit by a taxi. Several thugs rushed towards him. Although it was great to hit someone with a wild horse, John's fists were not good either. On the wet and muddy ground, he knocked down the mud rushers with his bare hands. At this moment, a taxi suddenly accelerated and rushed towards him. John turned over to avoid the collision. When he got up, a bumper rushed towards him and fell down. Just when he thought John was exhausted and sitting on the ground unable to get up, he didn't expect that John suddenly took out the HKP-302 pistol from his waist and fired twice, hitting the bumper's knee. "Boss, listen." The ghostly cries and howls coming from outside made him tremble for a moment. The door to the office was pushed open. John had already arrived. The boss thought that the man nicknamed Mustang would do something to him, but he didn't expect that John picked up the wine bottle on the table and poured two. One of the glasses of wine was placed in front of John. It turned out that he wanted to reconcile with John. John suddenly failed and killed all his men and then came over to him and asked him for reconciliation. He really couldn't refuse the request. John drank the glass of wine and turned around to leave. John could only sit still and watch him leave. No one can survive John Wick unless he doesn't want to kill you. John drove the dilapidated Mustang home slowly. The reason why he spent so much time there was a reason why he wanted to snatch the car back. It turned out that in the secret box in the passenger seat were greeting cards and photos given to him by his deceased wife, and this car was also a gift from his wife. John entered the house and a bull appeared. After running over and seeing the puppy, he was finally able to let go of all his defenses and burdens. John returned to his peaceful and lonely retirement life. He came to the basement and there was an open box. He had broken open the ground specifically to get his car back. Taking out the equipment that had been sealed for a long time, he now put the used gun back into the box and covered the box with cement. Just when he thought he would never touch these things again, the doorbell rang. John opened the door and saw a man. A man he was familiar with but didn't want to see. Behind the man stood a civilian bodyguard who seemed to have a good background. He welcomed the man named Santino into the house. While making coffee for the guests, John was worried. He had a premonition that something bad would happen. Sure enough, when the two were sitting face to face, Santino took out a silver medal from his arms. It was a blood badge with a bloody handprint inside, and these were John's. It turned out that this badge was a contract. John wanted to retire and quit the killer industry. The price for asking Santino for help was to sign a blood badge with him. If one day the holder of the badge needs help, the person who signed the contract must do it. And John knew that Santino asked him to help him except killing people. There would be nothing else, but John no longer wanted to go back to the past, so he refused resolutely. Seeing that Santino could not convince John to say more, he had to leave happily. But as a gangster brother, how could he be dismissed in just 1 or 2 sentences? Now that John is gone, since this mansion is only possible because of his help, he now has the right to destroy him. Santino took out an Alvin 37 grenade launcher from the back of the car. This is a powerful weapon. The weapon only fired 1 grenade and knocked John out of the house. Santino fired 3 shots and watched the entire mansion completely engulfed in flames before giving up. John lay on the ground and looked at the blazing flames. This time he didn't even have a home. Maybe this is the fate of a killer. The police and fire alarm came. As a fellow policeman looking at such a big battle, he wondered if John had returned to his old profession. But John did not answer him and left with his dog. And this may be John's answer. 1 person and 1 dog walked to the Continental Hotel. John asked the dog to wait at the front desk while he went to find Winston, the manager of the Continental Hotel. The puppy listened to John's words very much and squatted down as a tough guy's pet. There, he stared at the lobby manager motionlessly, making him feel a little scared. The Continental Hotel is a haven for killers, and its manager, Winston, is equivalent to the White Stone in the dark world of New York. As an old friend, John wants to inquire from Winston. Where is Santino? Of course Winston understands what John is thinking. He feels that John has lived in retirement for too long and has almost forgotten the 2 iron turtles in the dark world. The first is that you cannot kill people in the Continental Hotel. The second is blood. The badge must respond. If you violate any of the Iron Turtles, you will be severely punished by the High Table, the ruling class of the Dark World. Therefore, Winston advised John that it is best to meet Santinati's requirements first. It will not be too late to kill him after the contract is over. John is still a person who listens to advice, but this trip must be bloody. The only thing John cares about is his puppy. He left the puppy at the front desk and left without looking back, leaving the puppy alone. Watching him go away, John came to the museum according to the address given by Winston. As a big boss, Santino had countless bodyguards around him. John also had to be checked by a cool-looking female bodyguard to make sure that he was not carrying weapons. Let him pass. Santino is admiring the famous Italian painting Battle of Castazza, which is their family's collection. Santino seemed to have known about John's return for a long time, and John didn't want to talk nonsense with him. He went straight to the point and asked him who he wanted to kill. But Santino the answer surprised John. He actually wanted John to kill his sister Gianna. It turned out that Santino and his sister both belonged to the Camorra family, the oldest mafia in Italy, and the Camorra was a member of the Gaucho Association. One of the 12 seats, Santino's father passed the seat to his sister Gianna before his death, so now the entire Camorra is managed by Gianna. Of course, Santino was aggrieved. He wanted to marry a son, so he sent John to solve it. After losing his sister, he told John that the blood contract would officially end after this was completed. John turned around and left without saying a word. Santino knew that he had promised because the house was destroyed and all his belongings were gone. John came to a bank in the Jewish quarter. He kept a suitcase in the bank which contained a set of spare suits. Under the secret compartment of the suitcase were 2 large gold coins and a pistol. Thinking that he would be forced to become a killer again, he roared angrily in the secret room. He put on the black suit again and everyone knew that he was back in the world again. John traveled thousands of miles and came to Italy. He stayed at the Continental Hotel in Rome. The manager of the hotel was also John's old friend. He provided John with the best room for free and was in the hotel. All the facilities were open to him free of charge, so John found the sommelier in the hotel. The sommelier at the Continental Hotel not only tasted wine, but his other job was to help the killers choose weapons suitable for scales. Knowing John's taste, the sommelier chose appetizers include Glock 34 and 26 pistols for him to enjoy. This gun is equipped with a flared magazine for easier loading of bullets. Then he chooses a meal that is simple and accurate. It is an AR-15 automatic rifle. This gun has been modified by a taster to make it more powerful. To be more accurate, the final dish is the Bonelli M4 Super 90-wire shotgun with a practical retractable stock equipped with a rail interface system and the use of 12 caliber ammunition. It is a dish that is unforgettable, but John is not satisfied. He still wants to finish it. Finally, after saying goodbye to the sommelier, John came to a tailor shop. This shop specializes in custom making high-end and special combat suits with silicon carbide protectors inside the suits. A bullet like ordinary armor can't penetrate it, but it might hurt a little. Late at night, John came to the back of Jaina's mansion and entered through the underground passage. Along the passage he hid various weapons. As the new generation queen of the Camorra family, Gianna is holding a grand party at her own venue to celebrate her rise to power. Gianna, who looks dignified and gentle on the surface, is actually a ruthless woman. She just used a few sentences to easily control the enemy's power, and then returned to the bathroom alone to prepare to freshen up. While she was touching up her makeup, John appeared quietly behind her like a ghost in the night. Gianna, who was once her friend, was a little surprised when she saw the gun in John's hand, but she learned from John's mouth that he wanted to kill her. She was relieved that the person was her brother Santino. The brothers and sisters were fighting each other for the throne. Maybe she had known that such a day would come, but she did not expect that this day would come so early. Gianna showed no resistance at all and instead swallowed it in front of John. She took off her clothes and walked into the bath. She didn't let John do it. Instead, she used a sharp hairpin to slide a bloody gash on her wrist. She was a dignified woman. She chose to die in her own way. She told John before she died. Santino's ambition is much greater than hers. If her brother takes over, maybe the next goal is to conquer New York. John walked over and took Gianna's hand and sent her away for the last time. Although she was full of apologies as a professional killer, she still had to complete her work. A bullet was still fired. When John walked to the party venue, he didn't expect that Cassian, Gianna's personal bodyguard, recognized John at a glance. They met when they were fellow villagers. Cassian knew that John's sudden appearance here would not cause any harm. Everyone drew their guns at the same time and started shooting at each other. Although they both hit each other, they were all wearing bulletproof vests. John didn't want to get entangled with her too much, so he got up and ran away. Cassian asked everyone to chase her, while she hurried back to the inner room to check the information. John ran into the human headship. After receiving the message, countless bodyguards rushed towards her from all directions in the crowded Wuchi. John raised his gun and shot her at close range in the crowded Wuchi. His marksmanship was accurate and the gun hit the enemy without hurting innocent people. She ran to the corner to change. He took out the magazine and continued to break out. As a top killer with extremely rich work experience, John always used the Mozambique shooting method to attack the enemy. The first shot was always in the chest and the second shot was the headshot. John finally ran to the secret passage he planned. Just when he thought there were no enemies left, a person appeared at the end of the passage. She turned out to be Santino's personal bodyguard. Several gunmen suddenly appeared on both sides of her and shot at John, but they were blocked by John's bulletproof absorption. It turned out that the Santino faction, after John killed his sister, he immediately sent someone to ambush her. He wanted to kill and silence her to eliminate future troubles. John ran for his life in the passage. After the bullets in his pistol were finished, he took out the 82-15 automatic rifle hidden in the corner. It seemed that he had calculated it earlier. The insidious villain Santino has this trick. There is a reason why John can survive in the bloody storm for so long. Santino sent so many enemies. It seems that he must want John to die here, but John's A215 is a modified one equipped with a large-capacity double magazine and a large-capacity guanbao. John was like a murderous god in the dark night, rushing to greet Fashev. Finally, the A2-15 bullets were all used up. John took out his finale from the corner. The Ribonelli 4-wire bullet gun rushes towards the charging enemy. The disadvantage of this gun is that it has to keep changing bullets after 2 shots, but the visual effect of the attack is extremely outstanding. Every shot can cause a splash. In the end, bloodstained, John killed all the pursuers and escaped. He walked to a quiet alley in the city. Suddenly, a car rushed over and knocked him over. It turned out to be Cassian who was chasing him, but John killed the hostess. He was extremely angry. The two of them started a fierce hand-to-hand fight with John, who directly fired all the killer bullets. John had met his opponent this time. He couldn't get any advantage from Cassian. All his attacks were blocked by Cassian, even if he pulled out his pistol and shot indiscriminately. Cassian cleverly avoided both of them. The two fought desperately, broke through the glass and fell into a house, but were suddenly stopped. It turned out that the two of them accidentally broke into the Continental Hotel in Rome, and the Iron Turtle of the Continental Hotel was prohibited from entering. The hotel manager asked the two to go to the bar to calm down. Cassian also learned from John that Santino used the blood badge to force John to kill Gianna. Although John had his own, but Cassian already had different courage towards his mistress Jaina, so she had to avenge Jaina. She took out a gold coin and treated John to a drink, which also meant that the affection between the two was over. Next time when we meet, we must fight to the death. Just after sending Cassian away, the phone next to John rang. It turned out to be a call from Santino. This sinister villain saw that the operation to encircle and suppress John failed, so he wanted to find a reason to explain, but unexpectedly, John hung up the phone directly. Santino stood stunned on the spot because everyone who knew John knew that if this person hung up the phone silently, it meant that your life was in danger. Santino was scared because he had just verified this man's terrifying combat power, so he quickly made another phone call. He wanted to launch a bounty order. The bounty order is the right of the high table in the dark world. The 12 schedulers can launch a global hunt by paying the corresponding fee. It seemed that Santino was really afraid of this man called Night Stalker. The bounty amount reached 7 million. So the next second, all the killers in the world received text messages offering bounties on their mobile phones, and the target person was John Wick. John returned to New York. As he walked through the busy commercial street, a female street performer playing the violin behind him suddenly pulled out a pistol and shot at him. If John hadn't had a bulletproof vest, he would have been dead. However, he was still shot in the waist and dealt with the female killer. John stumbled to a crowded place. A man on the block followed him again. When John saw the people reading text messages on their mobile phones, he knew they were killers, so he rushed in front of them and used his famous classic weapon, the pencil, to kill 2 people bloody and cruelly. John killed one. Waves of enemies were coming. He ran to the crowded square and suddenly slowed down and started walking slowly because he felt that a stronger fighting force seemed to be nearby. Sure enough, Cassian appeared near the fountain. This was a force. The fountain, which was not inferior to his super rival, rose again. In an instant, the two of them took action at the same time. John took advantage of the chaos and ran into the subway station and blended into the moving crowd. Cassian stood on the high platform and saw the two of them getting on. All at once they were fighting each other with pistols equipped with silencers. The pedestrians around them did not feel the danger and were right next to them. The subway arrived. Both of them got on the same train. There were too many pedestrians on the train. Neither of them took action. This was a decisive battle. After taking a moment to catch their breath and waiting for everyone to get off the subway, the two of them silently took out their daggers. They took out their knives at the same time and held each other's knives against each other. Cassian stabbed John's thigh with all his strength. John and Cassian had a life-or-death battle. Cassian knocked the knife out of John's hand. After several pulls and struggles, John twisted Cassian's hand holding the knife with his backhand and stabbed the opponent's chest fiercely. John put Cassian on the seat and pulled out the dagger. Cassian immediately John won this battle to the death. John continued to run for his life. He was already scarred and exhausted. At this moment he saw 2 cleaners standing opposite and looking at him. John was unable to stand and could only turn around and run. He ran to the old subway station and found one in front of the iron railing. The tramp dropped a gold coin into his begging cup and asked to be taken to the man. After saying this, he sat down with the tramp. He told the other person his name. The tramp quickly pulled off the dirty plastic sheet and covered John's body. At this time, the 2 cleaner killers had already chased him. The 2 people just ran to the tramp, but they didn't expect the tramp to take action. Then 2 strong men came over silently and disposed of the body. It seemed that John had found the right person. Wait until John woke up and found out. More than half of his body had recovered, and the gunshot wound on his waist was bandaged. He was taken to a balcony which was full of various personalities. A fat black man greeted him with a smile. It turned out that this person was named Bao. Witkin is the underground king of New York City. He controls all the subway stations, sewers, and old town areas. But Bowie King is not actually John. Because John left a scar on his neck several years ago, Bowie King thought that John came to him to seek his help. After all, the 7 million global manhunt was unknown to everyone in the dark world. Unexpectedly, Bowie King, who John said was here to help him, laughed angrily. He took John to visit his basement where the wall fell down. Ruyun's cabinet was filled with all kinds of weapons and ammunition, so Bowie Jean didn't understand how John could help him, but John told him that a catastrophe was coming. If Santino was given a seat in the high school council, he would burn New York immediately. Then there will be war everywhere in New York, and Bowie King's territory will also suffer. But if Bowie King can help, John will take action to kill Santino and settle the matter. So John throws Bowie King a multiple-choice question. Bowie King smiled, raised his head and shouted, "Please pick up this man's pistol." John knew that the cooperation was concluded. Bowie King really provided him with a gold foil pistol in 1911, but Bowie King only gave him 7 bullets. Correspondingly, he took a bounty of 7 million, which was undoubtedly a joke on his life, but John still picked up the gun. After all, something is better than nothing. Bowie King asked his assistant to take him to the trail to where Santino was. At this time Santino was inviting guests to a party like his sister did in the museum to celebrate his rise to power. John came to the museum from the tunnel. Santino, who was chatting with the guest, suddenly saw John. He didn't expect that the god of death would come to him so quickly. The two people looked at each other and remained motionless. The guests felt the unusual atmosphere and dispersed one after another. John was all of a sudden. With 7 bullets, I had no choice but to grab the pistol from the thugs and chase Santino. John opened fire in the museum. While chasing, the bullets in the killing gun were exhausted, killing the enemy and replacing the magazine with a new one. John chased him to the second floor of the museum, where Santino was hiding. He finally found Santino among a bunch of reflectors. Tino also had a strong desire to survive and quickly broke through the glass wall to avoid John's shooting. John also missed the opportunity because he ran out of bullets. At this time the female bodyguard led the escort to the escort. The escort was well equipped and used M4A1 assault rifles. But even so, John, who did not have a gun, got close to the enemy and stalked him, then snatched the enemy's pistol and killed him. By this time, the female bodyguard had already found Santino and escorted her there. The elevator sent her away and she took out her business card and stayed behind, preparing to stop John, but how could she be May's opponent when she looked so arrogant? John snatched the wristband away from her in a few seconds, pierced her palm and stabbed her chest heavily. After dealing with the female bodyguard, John did not leave in a hurry but looked at her. He groped everywhere on his body, found a pistol, replaced it with a Star magazine and then left. At this time, Santino, who had no way to escape, ran to the Continental Hotel and found it. Winston was here as her last refuge because no one could kill someone in the Continental Hotel. John also came to the Continental Hotel. He walked up to Santino with a pistol. Santino pretended to be calm while eating his dinner. He saw that John was still there. He deliberately made a lighthearted joke, but in fact he was extremely frightened inside. Winston, who was standing aside, kept telling John to stay cold. But the next second, yes, John didn't care about the rules. He killed Santino cleanly. For him, life was about pleasure and revenge. John took his puppy away at the front desk and took him back to the cold and broken home. It was raining ice in the sky. John rummaged through the mud to find his wife's necklace. He sat on the tattered sofa. At this moment he finally got the feeling. His heart was calm, but not long after, a voice broke the rare tranquility. It turned out to be Brother Hay, the front desk manager of the Continental Hotel. John knew that what was supposed to come would eventually come. He was taken to the park. Winston had been waiting for him. After all, the Continental Hotels, there are iron rules that no one can break. If you make a mistake, you will be punished. Winston tells John that Gao Zhou will have sent Santino's the reward amount has been doubled. Now no one can save him. As the person in charge of the Continental Hotel, Winston also has the absolute strength to kill John in minutes. However, as an old friend, he did not do so and left John a chance to survive. He stayed, maybe give John an hour to escape and return Santino's blood badge to him. In the future, after the two old friends said goodbye to each other, John embarked on the road to escape, and a reward order of up to 100 million was once again issued to everyone in the dark world. The target is the legendary man. If you see one on the road, a man in a suit with a dog, he keeps running. Please don't stop him because he is John Wick.